Hey, welcome back to Max Nafe Horsemanship again today. And if you notice, it looks a little bit hazy. Well, it's not cloudy. It's actually, as far as I can tell, it's a clear day, but the smoke from the forest fires is pretty bad. And well, it's not uncommon. We get that now and again. These aren't fires from a long ways away. They're not too far north of here. And when the wind patterns, I'm not a meteorologist, so don't ask me to explain this real well, but if the wind comes from the right direction, brings the smoke down from the forest fires, and well, you end up with a day like this where you can barely even see the sun. And as usual, it's also kind of windy, not unusual. And so, might mess with the audio a little bit. Hope not too much. I'm going to review this before I try editing it, just to make sure. And we'll see what we can accomplish, because there might be a few things I say that are important. But I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you how to saddle a horse. Now, it's not a big deal. I'm just trying to show you an easy way of doing things, because I discovered not long ago that not everybody knows how to do this the way I do it. I've developed this technique of throwing a saddle on that works pretty good, especially if you got a really heavy Western saddle. For those of you that have got, say, the English saddles, the stirrups, they can be slid up on the leathers real easy, and they're not that horribly heavy, so a whole different ball game there. Before I get started, I'll also mention, no, I'm not using a saddle pad today, but then I'm not actually going to ride the horse either. I just want to show you how to put a saddle on. And it's so friggin' windy today that the one pad I have, I'm pretty sure I would spend more time chasing that thing across the pasture than I would making a video for you, because it's a pretty thin pad and it's rather windy. It'd probably blow away. So I'm not even going to bother with that. That's not the important part. The important part is the easy way of getting a saddle on your horse. And you will also notice when I demonstrate, I'm not going to wait till I get the saddle in hand to tell you this part. I also tend to saddle from the right-hand side of the horse, not the left-hand side like most people do. And it's not totally uncommon. There's a few people that do it, and there's a reason for it. To me, it just makes more sense, and it's a little easier. And, well, if there's an easier way of doing things, I try and find it. And as I go, I'm going to explain why it's easier. But in a minute, I'm going to grab one of the horses here. And I got my saddle sitting on the fence. I don't have a saddle stand, and I don't even have a small pen to work in, and it's a rather large area that we're in right now. So one of the things you're going to see me doing that I don't typically do when I'm saddling a horse is I'm actually going to have a lead on her, because if she decides to wander off on me, she could go for quite a ways, and I don't feel like spending a whole lot of time rounding up a horse again, because she does have her boyfriend in here with her too, which is another thing that may cause a problem too. Is there is another horse in here with her that, well, I tried to separate them to make life easier. Turned out that actually made things worse, because these two have decided that they are very good friends and they do not want to be separated. And if you put them on opposite sides of a fence, you're going to have a problem. We discovered that. Yeah, that was actually the first time since I moved here that I tried separating these two. I was more concerned about how well they were going to get along. Turns out they actually are getting along a little too well. Oh well. Anyhow, I'm going to show you, won't take too long I don't think, but I'm going to show you how to throw a saddle on a horse that's just a whole lot easier than how most people do it. A lot of people really struggle, like I said, especially if you got a big horse, you aren't real big, and you got a real heavy Western saddle. You're going to want to pay attention to this one, because it could make your life a lot easier. Because as it turns out, not a lot of people know how to do this, because I watched people struggling and I showed them how I do it, and they go, wow, that is so much easier. And well, I'll tell you in advance too that it's not something you're going to catch on to really quick. It's going to take some practice. It's taken me a while, and you know, but once you get her down, you know, I said when you're putting things on a horse, you have to be polite about how you do it. And that's one of the things we kind of mastered in this process. Is it not only makes it easier to put the saddle on, but it also allows us to do it politely once we get good at it. And you know, don't expect that first time you try this, it's going to work real good for you. You're going to have to practice a little to get really good at it, but once you get the hang of it and you get it down to a science sort of thing, you're going to be pretty grateful you know this stuff, because it's going to really make your life a lot easier. And I'm pretty sure your horse is going to appreciate it too, because like I said, you know, we like to do things politely. So it's the difference between slamming a saddle on a horse and floating it on real nice and gentle. And I'm going to show you how to do that, where you're not struggling to shove it up on the side of the horse. There's a little trick. It's not complicated. Really, honest. You just pay attention. It's not real complicated. It's actually fairly simple, but it's just a totally different way of doing it than a lot of people do it. And I've found that works out really good. And like I said, you know, don't forget to note, I also do it from the right-hand side of the horse. And there's actually a couple reasons for that. I'll explain them as I go. Well, actually, one of them I'll tell you right now is typically we do everything from the left side of the horse. Even the halters, the knot or the buckle, depending on what kind you're using, always on the left side. You kind of don't have much choice. You do up your cinch or your girth, usually on the left side of the horse. And most people will saddle from that side of the horse, but I've actually discovered it's easier doing it from the other side. And one of the reasons I like to do it from the other side is I don't like a one-sided horse. I want a horse that's used to everything from both sides. I've explained this in a number of my videos, how whatever you do on one side of the horse, you got to do on the other side, so they get balanced both ways, because they got this weird thing happening. It has something to do with how their vision and their brain works, that whatever they learn on one side, they might know it really well, but as soon as you go to the other side to do it, it's like something new all over again. Sometimes they'll catch on a little quicker, but in most cases it actually turns out it's almost like it's a brand new thing again. So that's one of the reasons I like to saddle from the right side of the horse, is it just gets them used to other, you know, things happening from both sides, so they don't become one-sided, because you never know, the day might happen where you got no choice but do things from the right side, and you don't want a horse that's going to blow up when that happens. So give me a second here. I'm going to grab this horse in my saddle, and I'll show you what we do. Well, I've said before I don't like tying, so I'm not going to tie her, but as you can see, I do have her on a lead. And I will keep her on a lead. And I'm just going to put it over my arm like this. You can do that, because unless you got a smaller area you can keep the horse in while you're doing this stuff, well, I don't like tying. I don't encourage anybody to tie. And you know, there's a sturdy post here I could tie to if I really wanted to, but we're not going to do that. But I do want her not running off on me, so I do want to lead. And with her, this should do the trick. Now I'm just going to grab my saddle off the gate here and show you what we've learned. And I don't know that I ever saw anybody else do it, but I kind of figured it out for myself how to do this stuff. And well, like I said, it just makes life easier, and it's a lot more polite for the horse. Just half a sec and we'll show you how to do it. Real easy. Okay, first thing you want to do is this is a pretty heavy saddle, so I'm going to get tired just holding it here. You can grab it under the cantle, you can grab it by the horn, you can grab it by the back of the seat, you can grab it by the back of the skirt. Whatever works for you, doesn't matter. And when you go to put it on the horse, what you're going to do is, well, she's only 15 hands, not horribly huge, but big enough that it would be difficult if you were trying to slide it up on her. But I developed this little way of doing it is, I just kind of swing it a little bit and use a centrifugal force, because you notice I don't have my stirrup up either. I'll explain why I do that too. And also another reason why I do it from this side, because you'll notice that my cinch and my rear cinch are both on this side. Now if you have a breast collar or something as well, that will probably also be on the right side. And so with all that long stuff hanging down, well, doing it this way, it's that much less stuff I've got to get over my horse. Now, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I can feel this lead slipping already. It's probably going to fall off my arm. Hopefully she's not going to go anywhere. But I'm just going to swing it up, and I don't have to practice too much because I've done this a few times, but I'm just going to swing it up and float it down on her back. Nice and gentle, and as you can see, I dropped the lead. But you'll notice that, now, no matter how good you are, you notice I got some strings under there. That's another one of the reasons I'm not bothering to use a saddle pad, because sometimes your saddle pad gets bunched up and everything else, and it just becomes a problem. Now, another one of the reasons I do it from this side. When you put your saddle on, the first thing you got to do is come around to this side to let your cinch down so that you can do it up from the other side. I'm not actually going to do this one up, so won't bother. I'm just going to put it all back where it was. And for those that have never seen this trick done, you just take and hook the rear cinch over the pin for the front cinch. And this little piece on the saddle, I actually ran into somebody, didn't even know what this was for. That is for hanging your cinch on. You just stick that part over it, lift it up, put the pin through the slot, drop it down, it's right there. It's not going anywhere, it's all hung up on the horse. Now, one other thing I said, you'll notice I did not put the stirrup up. Some of you will, I've seen it done. And one of the things I don't like about doing that, depending on the horse, is, and I have another saddle, it would be very difficult to do because it's got tapaderos on it that cover the front, so it would be a little trickier to hook it up on the horn. A lot of people do that, they'll just take their stirrup and put it up like that. Now, because of the shape of the horn and the stirrups and everything else, wouldn't be too bad on this one. They'd sit fairly secure, but not all of them do. And there's always a risk it's going to slip off, drop down, whack the horse in the side, and make the horse jump. Now, if you happen to have the one on the off side up, so that your opposite side, whichever, in this case it'd be the left side, if I had that one up and it flopped down and hit the horse in the side and she jumped sideways, she's going to come towards me. And that could end badly. That could make for a bad day. But you saw how I did that. I just kind of swung it up and I just floated it down onto her back. I don't know how good a view, I can't see the monitor from here. I don't know if you can see me and the horse all that well. Let me just check that. Turns out we're far enough away, you got a decent view. Maybe a little too far away, but I just kind of give it a swing, and that momentum kept the stirrup out, so it just went up and over on the other side. Now, I have another one of the reasons I didn't include the saddle pad is because it can get all munched up, and I got one that's really thin. It would blow away in the wind on a windy day like this. You can see the way my shirt's flapping. It's windy. And so I didn't bother with that. And on one saddle I actually put the saddle pad and the saddle on together at the same time, because that one sits, it's a little thicker and it sits in the saddle real nice. So when I put it on, not a problem. Before you cinch it down anyhow, you're going to want to go around the other side, make sure that all your saddle strings aren't stuck underneath the saddle, and that kind of stuff can happen. Guaranteed. I don't care how good you are. The saddle pad can get bunched up and stuff like that. But that's the basic thing. It just, rather than trying to shove it up on the side of the horse and getting everything stuck underneath it for sure, this way, if you get the right speed, I didn't do it quite fast enough today, and with the wind it pushed the strings back a bit too. There's always variables. I didn't get it perfect, but we got it swinging up and then floated down onto the horse's back, so we do it politely. I'm not slamming that saddle on because that's a pretty heavy saddle. And she probably would not appreciate it if I slammed that thing onto her back. But rather than struggling to shove it up onto the horse, just a nice little momentum going, a little swing, and then you just float it up, set it down. It's going to take you some practice to get the hang of that one, to do it just right, but I can assure you, once you get the hang of it, you're going to be real happy you learned how to do it that way. And when you go to take it off, very similar. Try and be reasonably polite about it, and bring it off and pull it away so it doesn't, nothing swings back and nails the horse and makes the horse unhappy. Now, I just do this one more time, just so you see what I did. Just get a little momentum going, and then you just swing it up and float it down. Make sure it's centered before you even think about trying to do it up. Oh, where do you think you're going, dear? She's more interested in her boyfriend right now. Yeah, sweetheart, you're a good girl. But I can already tell when I was putting it on, we've probably got a few strings under the saddle on the other side or whatever, but that's not important. If I was actually going to do it up, I'd deal with that stuff, take it off, straighten it out, and all that before I tightened anything down. But there you go. 2 reasons to saddle from the right side. Well, 1, prevents a one-sided horse. 2, you got to come around this side as soon as you get it on anyhow to let this stuff all down. So you may as well already be here. To me, that just makes sense. Those are the 2 main reasons I do it from the right side. And the method that I use, it's easier than trying to lift that thing up, heave-ho, and get it onto the back of the horse without getting a lot of stuff stuck under it, like the stirrup and stuff like that. And if I had a pad on too, that is also going to make it easier to get it onto the pad without shoving the pad off the other side too, which can happen too if you're trying to push it up. So there's all these different problems. If you can just swing it up and float it down onto the horse, solves a lot of problems and makes life a little easier. She hasn't been saddled in a very, very long time. So you'll notice the second time I threw the saddle on, she actually jumped a little bit when I did that, throwing the saddle at her. Keep in mind, she's a very sensitive horse, and which is actually one of the things I like about her. But that also makes her a tiny bit jumpy sometimes with certain things, because that big old saddle flying at her, that's a big deal. So I want to make it as nice as possible, and that's one of the reasons we do it the way we do it. And well, go practice. It'll take a while. Believe me, it'll probably take a few times, maybe quite a few. Depends on your knack for this kind of stuff. It's kind of like knowing just how far to throw a ball. You got to know just how much effort to put into it. One more thing along the lines of the 2-sided doing things is every once in a while mount from this side. And it doesn't hurt because every once in a while it's good for the horse, for one thing. It helps prevent one-sided again. And someday you just might be in a bind where you got no choice. You have to get on from this side. And so you want to be adept at doing it, and you want the horse to be comfortable with it happening. And, well, I haven't done it a lot myself. I do it occasionally. Unfortunately, the last time I did it, obviously I don't do it enough because I misjudged how much effort I needed to get myself into the saddle, and I almost went clean over the horse. So take some time to practice that before you actually need to do it, so you know just how much effort you have to put in. Doing it from the other side, I'm right-handed, so that's a lot more natural for me, but you should be able to do it from this side as well, both for your benefit and for the horse. There's lots of reasons for doing it. So help prevent a one-sided horse, make your life a little easier. Throwing the saddle on from this side, like I said, that makes your life easier because you're already here to let the stuff down, and swinging it up like that is easier than trying to struggle it up, and it's a lot more polite for the horse when you finally float it down onto their back. Like I said, it's going to take a while to get the hang of that one, I promise you. Don't expect anybody to get the hang of it the first time they do it. But do it a couple times and pretty soon you're going to realize just how much easier it is to do it that way. In the meantime, have a good day and go practice saddling your horse. Bye now.